From your experience as a white female, do you have examples of how your gender and race have worked to your advantage so far?
Oh yes, absolutely. So I live in Avon, which is a little town about half an hour south of Nazareth, and there's an old abandoned quarry that's a lovely place to swim that a neighbor told me about. And it's technically on private property, but a lot of the local kids go there, and some of my friends who work at Geneseo had students who told her about it. So it's also right off the Genesee Valley Greenway, and there's a very clear trail off of it to a rope swing that goes out over to the water. So I had been going with my friends most of the summer, occasionally in the evenings, to go for a nice swim. And my dog has some hip problems, so swimming is really good for him. So it was a really, really hot afternoon in the summer, and instead of going at night, I thought I'd go in the middle of the day. So I went down and I took the dog swimming, and when I got out, the Livingston County Sheriff was waiting for me. Apparently one of the workers at the quarry had seen me and had called in. So the quarry has a new owner who's much more strict about trespassing. And so they were sort of, anyway, I decided that I didn't really want to be arrested because that's Dr. Murray's job to get arrested. So I explained to the nice officer, and then there was another one that came too, so there were two officers, that, I had this just poor crippled dog, and gosh, I was just trying to, get him some exercise, and I even threw the frisbee for the poor crippled dog who then fell down, and I was wearing a bathing suit, and so I was like, "Oh, officer, I'm so sorry." Eventually we had to wait for a third officer to show up, and so I was chatting with the gentleman, and I was asking him how their car works, and we got talking about dogs, and then we all got talking about the new quarry owner, and how there were kids that came down, and I was sure that I mentioned to them that I was a professor, and that I taught in Nazareth, and I wasn't going to cause trouble. And by the end of this conversation, they were apologizing profusely to me for having wrecked my fun, and they had all taken out their cell phones to show me photographs of their dogs, and were giving me suggestions as to other places that I could find to swim when I left. And I was pretty glad that I was a young white woman, because I'm pretty sure that it would not have worked out in my favor, and I absolutely used that to my advantage. So all of the assumptions went in my favor. It doesn't mean that I think that it would have absolutely worked out differently if someone had been not white, or if someone had been a man. I was a woman, I was in a bathing suit, but I was, I didn't look like trouble, which incorporates a whole lot of features. I wasn't a teenager. Didn't get the stigma for a teenager. So I think that the big thing is that all of the assumptions went in.
Interactions between police officers and the African American community can sometimes be fraught with misunderstanding. Because of our history, he said, African Americans are sensitive to these issues. Here's Pierre Thomas.
Survive the encounter, get justice later. In some black homes, that's the advice when dealing with police, even in 2009.
Be polite in front of the police. Your life may depend on it.
Paul Butler, a Harvard-trained former federal prosecutor, recalls being arrested in front of his home after a dispute with a neighbor over a parking space. No questions asked.
When the police came out, they saw a black man, and as soon as they saw me, it's like they wanted to arrest. They didn't even want to listen to what I had to say.
Though there's been progress in race relations, encounters between blacks and police officers remain complicated.
Well, the first thing that goes through a black person's mind is that they suspect that they were racially profiled. That's just the reality of the situation.
Why? There's history, especially the painful memories of the civil rights movement. And today's reality. Black males are incarcerated at roughly 7 times the rate of their white counterparts. 76% of blacks in a recent ABC News poll said African Americans do not receive equal treatment from police as whites do. Scott Newman, a hotel manager, described it being pulled over by police.
Pulled over for no reason whatsoever, not speeding, and they just unpacked my entire car for no reason at all, looking for drugs or something, but found nothing.
Victoria Bostic's father was a cop. She recalled growing up in New Jersey.
The officers were very vigilant about, African Americans, people of color in general. I mean, you saw it all the time. I mean, they were always being pulled over. So I cautioned my daughter.
The instructions are quite specific.
Do not get sarcastic. Do not be, over the top. Be respectful, and just keep it under the radar.
The fear for some blacks is that real. Pierre Thomas, ABC News, Washington.
Change the world instead. I sleep. I want to believe in more than you and me. All that I know is I'm breathing. All I can do is keep breathing. All we can do is keep breathing now.
My name is Enzo Meola, and I have lived on J Street, which is located in the inner city, since 1979, so for the last 30 years.
What kind of racial changes have you seen occur in this area?
I've seen J Street go from what was at one point a pretty fairly mixed group from a cultural background to what is now predominantly minorities. I'd say probably a 90 to 10 mix.
Why do you think these drastic changes have occurred in the area, just from what you have seen?
I think minorities have kind of come to the center or the inner city based mainly on financial status, social status. I've seen houses for sale on the J Street area for as little as $10,000, so I think it's more of a poverty movement, unfortunately. And along with this mix of minorities goes a lot of gangs and crimes, and I think that's the main reason why a lot of the white Americans have left the area, and hence the whole residential segregation.
What has kept you and your family to stay in this area?
Well, my parents came over to this country in 1971, and at that time J Street was like I said before, a pretty mixed area. There was a lot of whites in the area, and at one point numerous doctors and lawyers that lived on the J Street area of town. Both of them obviously coming from Italy. There were a lot of Italians in this area, so they moved to this area, and my family has been here, since 1979, and despite the changes around us, we feel that this is our home, and this is where our memories are, and this is where our opportunities began, and as long as